Hi, Beth, you on?
I am here. Hello.
Great, hello. I don't know about you, I had the same Mimecast block when I went to join the Zoom meeting.
Yeah, I don't even bother now. I just dial right in with the number.
Yeah. So that link issue might hold some folks up.
Yeah, let's give them a few minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I thought, hi, I see Kate and Susan. Thanks for joining, ladies.
Good evening.
Hi. I thought that the town was working on that Mimecast issue, but I don't know. Jeremy's gone now. I don't know if anybody's replacing him, but it would be helpful.
Yeah. Jeremy's gone, is in no longer at the town?
Yeah, he left. I think his last day was the 17th. That's why I kept emailing him. Give me our last conference call dial-in.
Right.
Has Kate, do you know if anybody's replaced him or will be replacing him?
I know that they have been advertising and recruiting. I haven't been part of that process.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know where they are in that.
I wonder, like, for next week, we have to set up our meetings for next year. I wonder if I should just reach out to the town clerk or Aaron. I'm not sure.
I can do it for you. I mean,
you can?
We have the same account, the town manager's office. I just happen to be not in the same building, but I definitely have it. So if you send me the dates, I'd be happy to plug them in and give you those.
Yeah, we do it like the fourth Wednesday of every month, except for this month because of the Thanksgiving. So I will. Thank you so much.
Yep, no problem.
So sorry, we'll just hang on for a few minutes because we need the rest of our committee to get a meeting.
At least one more. I'm going to send a note to the crew.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Do you mind just explaining what the Mimecast? I'm sorry, I guess I'm just out of the loop, but I want to at least go to Chris Carmody, who is Stephen Crane's administrator, and try to figure out what the issue is.
Sure. So since we've been doing Zoom, like the last 5-6 months, we mostly have been doing our meetings in person, Kate, but everybody has been complaining that it's like a security issue and it says Mimecast and it won't let you pass that firewall. So we've heard from multiple people, they'll be emailing us during meetings, I can't join, and then they just give up. So yeah, and I'm having texts right now from people saying I'm having trouble getting in.
Are they trying to open the agenda from an email?
No, you just go to the town website and select the agenda there. But it doesn't matter. It's the Zoom link. Whether you do it from an email or you do it from the town's website, same thing.
Never heard that. So
wow.
I've made a note of it, and I will check with Chris tomorrow.
Yeah, we've been seeing this consistently since May.
Yeah. Josh, do you want to send, I mean, I don't know who was attending, but I know like, unfortunately that we have invitees from Stiles Pond, from Marston Mills Pond, because they're having problems. Then we have our board members.
They just have to use the meeting ID and the passcode. That's the only thing to do.
I wonder if I could somehow, hang on, I'll try to go to my email. Let me exit full screen. See if I can send out, get a text out to these people.
Did you send them the meeting ID and the passcode?
Yeah, and I sent him the agenda, it's just there.
Right.
It's natural for me to try, but not everybody does that.
They just have to know to do that, right?
Yeah, asking me on the agenda. All right, let me.
Jeff. All right, Jeff will be along. He's working to figure it out. Susan, thanks for speaking up last night at the CPA meeting. Really appreciated that.
You're welcome.
Okay, they don't need to see my face.
All right. Hi, Alice. Hey, Cheryl.
Hi.
All right. Hi, Cheryl. I think you're on mute,
Yeah,
Cheryl.
I'm just saying I've never had that problem before, but anyway, all
Okay.
right. in.
Hey, we have a quorum. All right.
Yay, yay. We'll give Jeff a minute. I'm getting a bunch more texts. I just sent out a general email to everybody. Just saying, dial in if you can. Oh, good. Catherine's coming on. Sorry, everybody. Not what we'd like to have happen. Do you, we'll give Jeff one more minute and then we'll get going. I know everybody's busy and we were late meetings, all of us last night.
Cheryl, do you want to take notes? You want me to do it?
I'm already on it.
Cool. Thank you.
Unfortunately, I only have my iPad, but that's fine.
For the record, Jeff volunteered. Cheryl, I tried to take you off this time.
Well, he did. He said he sort of thought he would kind of volunteer. I thought maybe he just didn't want to do the report. So the annual report, I thought, oh, I'll stick with minutes and so.
Yeah, exactly. We'll go over that too. I wonder if Jane was trying to get in too. Okay, I'm getting all sorts of numbers. Mimecast.
Yeah, it's that Mindcast. I've never had that problem before. So I don't understand.
Yeah, okay, that's the people from Styles. Okay, looks like Jeff is connecting. So, boy, I really, because I know with Kate here, I wanted the social media group to be here too, because she's going to be helpful with us for getting this list out, but I don't see Ken or Lucas either. I sent a note to the DPOA board. Hopefully they'll see it. Okay, Jeff, I see you're here. I think we're just going to get going and hope people can figure this out.
Yeah, it was, thanks for sending the I couldn't find a link anywhere.
Well, yeah, the link wasn't working, I guess. Some people are getting that Mimecast. I wonder if the town, like Susan and Kate, didn't have it because they have town emails or something. You know, it's the firewall, I believe. Yeah, I'm getting like, I've gotten like 7 texts right now. I didn't know everybody had my number.
Yeah.
Well, anyway,
I sent an email to Chris Carmody in the town manager's office and asked him to look into it, and I copied you and Josh on that. So hopefully he can work with you. You might be right that we're inside the firewall or something. I'm not familiar with the issue. So
yeah,
hopefully we'll get it worked out for you.
Yeah, thank you. We had copied both. I forgot Chris was on the list too, so hopefully they'll figure it out. Okay, so we'll get going. I'd like to call the meeting to order. It is 7:10 p.m.
Second the motion.
Yep, same. Check for yay.
Am I taking minutes?
I've got the minutes going. It's fine.
Okay, great. Thank you.
We'll have another assignment for you, Jeff, very soon.
Okay.
Okay, so yes, the minutes are now we have to approve the minutes. They're accepted from October 27th.
So you're making a motion, I'll second?
Yeah, yes.
Third.
I approve.
Okay, great, thank you. I will have them posted on the town website tomorrow. We review action items as the first agenda item. And the only action item the last time was to send the final vision document to the select board. That was done the next morning by Josh, thank you. And next item would talk a little bit about our presentation to the select board that occurred on November 7th, 2021. So we basically had a PowerPoint where we kind of skimmed down the high points of the vision. As you know, it's a very lengthy document, and presented to the select board. And Susan, pipe in anytime if you want. I think, you know, everybody had read it, understood it. thanked us for all the hard work. They realized that this committee and people have been working very hard to create this, this vision document. Josh, you want to add any other of the highlights? I don't want to
Yeah.
pat ourselves on the back.
I think the document and the presentation was well received by the select board, it appeared. This was important for our committee, I think. When I joined in May, I'm not sure that the select board knew the name of our committee. They do now, which is cool. So we're on the map. I think at some point, I forget if it was the select board or someone's side comment, it said that we were the hardest working committee of this year. Noted our many meetings, especially over the summer. And it seemed like, generally they're really quite supportive and interested in our goals, from sewage to testing, including people management, which I've been working on. I'll be honest, it's confounding me. So good, good progress. Consistent with what, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, consistent with what we had let the select board know, we didn't have any asks for them besides moral support. We're not asking them for money. We're not asking for anything at this time. We did let them know that the big asks were coming, and they probably had to do with sewer. But that was not this presentation. So this was more, here's what we did, here's what we found, here's what we think going forward. They were also, and Susan, again, correct me if I've got this wrong, but I think everybody appreciated the fact that we didn't just stop at the vision, but that we've created our subcommittees and our volunteer groups, and we're moving forward with what we think can be most helpful for the pond.
I agree. I think that it was well received by the board, and we're looking forward to hearing about your future enactment of the plans that you've set out. Sorry, I'm losing my voice.
That's all
I
right.
think,
Thank you.
one of the other things that happened was we learned at that meeting, and there's lots of questions, great questions too, by the way. And we did talk about the APOD, which we'll talk about a little bit more too, because of the CPC meeting last night. But one of the things we learned at that meeting was that Senator Mike Barrett was going to be invited to a meeting the next week. So that was really good timing, because we were invited to come back and actually talk to Senator Barrett about our town of Concord writing the 2 letters to the Department of Fisheries and having no response about, stopping the trout restocking. So that the subsequent meeting I did attend and mention that to him. And I'm really happy to say that today, Senator Barrett's chief of staff sent me an email, copied me, and I can show it to you all, that Senator Barrett sent to the Commissioner of Fish and Wildlife, expressing his deep concern and asking for them to contact our select board so we can work on this very crucial issue. So it was just fantastic. Let me see if I can.
Congratulations. That was great to get him on board on that issue.
Yeah. And his letter, I mean, he and you could tell when we talked at the meeting, I mean, he knew about the issue. He felt strongly about this. And so, I mean, it's just really great to get that support.
That's
I'm
great.
not seeing where I can share the screen. I'm in full screen mode. Am I just being an idiot here?
I believe it's at the bottom. While Beth is doing that, I'd like to give public kudos to Ken Clarkson, who contacted Senator Barrett twice on our behalf and set up the interface for Beth to be able to talk to him.
Great. Super.
Yay team.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Can I just confirm he was at the Board of Selectmen's meeting? Is that where you spoke with him?
Yeah, not the November 7th where we presented the vision, but the following one. I guess it would have been the 14th maybe.
Okay.
And so then Brendan, he introduced us, or he mentioned Brendan Berger, I think is his name, as the chief of staff would be, reaching out. So I just sent him an email and then they sent me that today. I am not finding the share screen. I don't know why. It's usually working for me fine. So.
Well, Beth, I believe you.
But Beth, could you send that letter around? I'd like to see it.
Yeah, I was going to, and I'm going to attach it to the minutes.
Great.
As well. After we go to the next item, let me hang on a second. I could actually read it to you. This is crazy. Okay, I see. Oh, great. We have some more people. The next agenda item, and I will get that letter and figure out how to set it up. The next agenda item is actually about the Stiles Pond in Boxford and Long Pond in Marston Mills. These are two groups of people who are facing similar issues with cyanobacteria problems. And so they've attended, they actually sat in on, I think the select board meeting and maybe a CPC meeting, and are also looking at ways for brainstorming, very interested in the APOD and our, test pilot results from this summer. So I see Karen Gladstone, you made it on the call, Karen. Karen, are you muted? Nope, she just disappeared. Nope, she's coming back. Hi, Karen. This is Karen.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, no problem. I sent Karen a bunch of information, directed her to our website, and Amy, I don't see Amy on yet, who's from the Marston Mills. So maybe I would I'm going to defer this. This is number 4 on our agenda, and I'm going to go to number 5, and I'm going to come back, Karen, because it will be better to have both of the representatives from the ponds volunteer groups. Is that okay?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we're having a problem with that Mimecast issue, so we're hoping other people will be joining. So we'll just skip down quickly. We'll talk about the CPA application and the presentation to the CPC committee. So that the agenda says for the CPC committee, October 19th, and we also presented again last night. Well, not presented, it was an open town meeting. You can, I think our committee members all attended that meeting on October 19th. As you may recall, there was lots of questions, right, about the technology, about if it's sole source, about if a committee can actually submit an application, things to that nature. So we had to go back to the drawing table, and since that time, there's been 10 letters of support put on the CPC website. If you haven't seen them, I'd encourage you to go to the CPC meeting documents and read them. They're compelling. The town of Newbury actually sent a letter of support in themselves because they had successful use of the APOD. And so I thank everybody in the community who did send those letters in because they're very helpful. Last night, there was a number of also very compelling comments by people in the town about begging the CPC actually to allow the use of this modest funding we're requesting of $36,000 for the APOD next summer. And just for everybody who's new to the meeting, we have data. The data shows that this works. And there was like a 1,000-fold increase in cyanobacteria captured with the APOD. So it's clearly working. And what we're trying to do is get that back in the water for 2022, because it can then be the larger, not the portable APOD being used to get rid of the, years and years of accumulation of these HAB harmful algal blooms. Last night, we were also asked to show and provide a letter that shows that the APOD is a sole source technology, so we wouldn't have to have dual, bids to other companies, other types of technologies. I did reach out to what is it, ESS, the group that did the the reports for the pond a few years ago, and they don't actually bid for aluminums and for copper sulfate. They gave me some information, but the technology is so different. So today we submitted to the CPC board, Diane, I copied you, Susan Bates, on that letter showing it's a sole source provider. John Higgins Engineering had to apply for a patent. They had a patent, and during the patent search, you have to make sure there's nothing else like that, and that indeed was the case. So that hurdle is over. We've provided that letter showing that the APOD is a sole source. And then we were also tasked to reach out to town, and Josh and I sent a letter this morning based on that request to Stephen Crane and Kate. You're copied, Susan, Delia, Susan Rask, and I think Parks and Rec, because we were not sure who would be our partner. But this was to kind of
Marsha Rasmussen as well.
Right, Marcia's, okay, Marcia's well too, sorry. And then we were requested to see if we could get somebody, not necessarily to co-sign, and not necessarily letter of support, but there was some concern, I think, about who handles money and could we have another applicant from the town on there. So we reached out. I think we had lots of great questions and comments last night. We're very hopeful that we will at least get some amount of funding. I know there was discussions within the CPC themselves about the asks. There's so much money, there's only so much money in the pot, right? So will they be giving full awards out or not? So that will be, being decided and voted upon soon. So I think we've given everything that we can as far as action items. I'd also like to thank Catherine Claremont, who's on the line right now, because she did a lot of research into the regulations, into the legalities about this. And it's a lot of legwork because trying to find out, do we need to have a co-applicant, et cetera, et cetera. So I thank you, Catherine, for your also diligent work for helping us. Catherine, do you want to say anything, or Josh, about that?
No, I did want to say, again, a different set of thanks to Catherine, because apparently after Beth and I dropped off the CPC meeting last night, there was another 10 minutes of discussion about process, and the CPC apparently is quite supportive of us, but they are concerned about process and making sure that we're doing things the right way. So we're striving really to do things with the right process.
I wanted to say something. I sent another email out about within the last hour, because it just so happened that I spoke to the Community Preservation Committee Coalition today. And so I'm not sure if people saw that, but I wasn't expecting a call back because they don't typically speak to citizens. But when he did call, my original call to him, I'm trying to be short here, was really about the procurement questions. But it took him a while to get back to me. So I took the opportunity to discuss the issues that came up last night that Beth was just reviewing. This next hurdle about co-applicants and who has the right to apply and all of that. So I sent a pretty comprehensive response about that this evening to everyone, meaning, mostly, Heather, Diane, Susan, this board. And the bottom line is that it is really a local authority. And the big key here, I think the big takeaway is that this coalition has this hotline, and they're more than happy to help the CPC guide them through these kinds of complexities. This is their mandate, their role is to assist communities and committees to guide them when these kind of quagmires, so to speak, I'm going to call it political quagmire, happen. And so I tried to explain this from my perspective. He said it's not uncommon for these kinds of things to happen. And I'm very hopeful that the coalition will provide further guidance to get through this, because he also said this is exactly the kind of project that that is a high priority for them when there's a need, an imminent need, and no community funding for it. So this is essentially their biggest mandate. So I'm hoping this letter opens doors to get us past this sort of catch-22 situation that I feel this CPC is in. I mean, I'm getting everything mixed up here. You know what I'm talking about. But anyways, that's what I wanted to say. So,
Catherine, could you clarify the coalition's name again? What's this? So the coalition who is offering this support, what is this name?
It's in an email. I can send it to you. And I wrote their number and the man's name I spoke to. So
I would like that too.
So
Okay.
this is some Massachusetts coalition of the.
Yes, this is the Community Preservation Committee. Act. I believe it's Community Preservation Act Coalition. So it's a Massachusetts umbrella coalition, and their mandate is to provide guidance, legal guidance, assistance to communities, to help them through and answer questions. They had a question and answer thing, and one of them was about procurement, and it didn't really answer my questions. So I think they had a link to the law, to the act itself. I mean, to the Procurement Act, because it is a question they get commonly. So I read that, and that's when I sent an email to Heather and said, what about sole procurement? And can you clarify that? And that generated the memo that I believe we all got. So, it stopped that kind of like circular discussion about, can you do sole source or not? That was going on for a while. So, Heather initiated getting that memo while I was waiting for them to call me back. But, their website has a lot of information.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Any other comments about the CPC application and process from anybody in the audience?
I was really impressed about how many people spoke up who we've never heard from before,
Yeah,
or like coming out of the blue, impassioned. 40 years, 60 years of history. It was really great.
yes, yeah, and very much appreciated and passionate. We had more, it was great. So, guess what? I found out where I can share my screen. So I'm going to try, and you can tell me, Josh, will you tell me if you can see it?
Yep.
It's saying maintain current size. Yep, it's just not doing it. Do you see anything yet?
Nope.
Okay, not yet. I'm looking at it.
Nope.
That is so weird. So I'll just read you real quick. This was addressed to Commissioner Ronald Amadon, Commissioner of the Department of Fish and Game. Dear Commissioner Amadon, I write you respectfully to ask that the department respond to the letter sent to it by the Concord Select Board on August 21st, 2020 and April 15th, 2021, requesting Department of Fish and Game to end the stocking of rainbow trout in White Pond. I'm in total agreement with the town's position. Local officials know the pond very well. I hope you can go along with their judgment. In light of the significant recreational activity at the pond, I am worried not only about its good health, but the good health of my constituents. Concord has been trying to address algal blooms and improve water quality by reducing phosphorus loading, but Department of Fish and Game's actions in adding the trout are neutralizing their efforts and even making matters worse. Thank you in advance for your time and consideration. I hope you can reach out promptly to the Select Board to find a solution that works for everyone. Sincerely, Mike Barrett, Senator Mike Barrett.
Great
So,
letter.
Yeah, it is. So I, like I said, I'll send it to you guys and we'll put it in the minutes as well. So that's that. Okay. Well, I don't see Amy joining, so let's go back up to Stiles Pond and Boxford and Long Pond and Marston Mills. I can tell you that Long Pond and Marston Mills has also requested and is requesting earmarking $30,000 to have the 8-pod out in their pond. They are actually requesting it to be budgeted. So we'll see how that goes. But they called us and were asking about the data, and then they got in touch with John Higgins and got additional data. Karen is from Boxford, where they're having similar issues, and are you still here?
Yep.
Okay, so I don't know, Karen, you want to kind of give a quick background about what's happening in your pond?
Well, we have had, it doesn't sound like our situation has been as bad as the pictures that I've seen of White. Is it White's Pond or White Pond? White Pond. But I've only lived at Stiles Pond for 2.5 years, but we've had a series of blooms, and they seem like they're getting earlier and earlier in the season. And we've had, I wouldn't say we have not cooperation from the town, but we don't understand the problem, and it's such a big problem, and I'm sure you understand. I mean, it's just, we have to figure out how to monitor it. We've engaged someone from the EPA who is an algae specialist, Dr. Hilary Snook. And he's been incredibly useful, but like the town can't seem to find a place to test the water. Do they want to test the water? Is it important to test the water? And there are so many questions. We just don't know where to start. And you guys, I've read a lot of the stuff that you have, that you were mentioning, Beth, and wow, I'm really impressed with how comprehensive and how much you've done. So we have a long way to go, and we really need some direction, because if there's something that we can do to make this not get worse and worse.
Right.
You know, and not get it as bad as what the situation seems like it is at White. So that's where we're at. And I think we're not as congested as you all are. I think septic is going to be a big issue for us.
Yeah.
Some people have tight tanks. Some people have old septics, which are Title V compliant. However, you mentioned in your report, and I'm learning more and more every day, that it's the nitrogen and phosphates that really aren't filtered by you know, even these Title V compliant septic systems.
Yeah.
So,
We, Karen, I'm not sure if it's there, but our meeting last month, we had our director of the Board of Health, Susan Rask, and gave an excellent presentation on septics and how they work. And we had a volunteer youth group also do a septic study, and a lot of work was done by this group, but they actually mapped out for all the abutters who had septics, who had tight tanks, cesspools, you know, things like that, when were they last serviced. So, and further down in this agenda, two of the people on our committee have actually tasked to, they're in the volunteer group called the Septic and Sewer Committee. So they'll probably give us an update too. So that will be maybe some other information, but I would really suggest that to look at the video from our last meeting, because Susan did give a great presentation.
okay.
And to your other point, I mean, I'm glad you guys called us. I'm sad that you're having this situation occur, and I know with Kate is our liaison from the town to White Pond, and Susan is our select board liaison. I mean, one of the things that I see is an opportunity for Concord, you know, for other folks, for other towns like yourself and like Marston Mills, for us to be kind of like the trailblazer here and point to Concord and what Concord's done, and did it work, and can we benchmark Concord? And that's what I hope, because I just, all we want is to protect and have White Pond safe swimming, because, you know, as we've said multiple times, just because you might not see a bloom that day doesn't mean there's not some harmful bacteria. And in fact, we know in September, there was antitoxin in the water. So, you know, yeah, if you have children, if you have pets, if you have the flora and fauna, it's just really dangerous. So I'm really hoping that Concord, we get this approved and we can be somebody who can also be kind of, like I said, a benchmark in this field, because it's happening all over, not just Massachusetts, but everywhere. So, yeah.
Karen, can you give me, sorry, interrupting, Karen, can you give me your email? I'm going to send the email that you requested to everyone. Please.
Yeah, it's Dr. K Glad, DRK, GLAD as in David, at gmail.com. DRK, GLAD at Gmail.
Okay, but you said doctor in front of it, DR, okay.
Yeah, it's
DRK,
just, it
GLAD,
looks
okay.
like dark, DRK.
Okay, got it. Not, no,
Great.
okay, with it, you said DRK, okay, not ARK, okay, very good.
All right, great. And Karen is part of a group of they're volunteers, you know, just, they're not a formal committee yet, right, Karen?
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
I
which
mean,
is,
we're
you know,
so at the beginning of this, you know, we're
Yeah.
just, it's like, we've got a problem. We don't know what to do. We're trying to start somewhere. And I feel I'm incredibly grateful to have found you, because you guys you're so far, you're much farther ahead than we are, and you're doing such a great job.
We're
It
trying.
looks like something's actually happening. That's so exciting.
We're hoping. We
Oh,
gave a
yeah.
water quality testing scenario to the town, and we're hoping that gets in the town budget because we, like you, had not been doing testing except for coliforms, and then we have some volunteer citizens doing clarity. So yeah, we're hoping that this whole thing comes together so we have predictive markers for water quality along with this technology that's removing it, and we can watch it move. We can watch what's happening. So yeah.
And we have 4 camps. One is a camp for kids with disabilities around this pond. And many of these camps have been here for 50, 60 years. And, you know, they need to be involved in this situation because we can't have kids going in this water and getting sick.
Yeah.
Karen.
Yeah,
one of
that's
the-
so true. So true. And we have
One-
Kate Hodges is, you know, like I said, our rep from the town, and is, there's a beach improvement project, and we don't have camps, but we have, you know, there's a membership, and people couldn't swim this year, most of the year because of that. So it's really important for visitors and swimmers. Any other comments?
I got a thought. Karen, we're fortunate that the town has been gifted a tremendous amount of land on the pond, and also it bought years ago conservation and reservation land. At one point, we did talk about, do we need a watershed association? And we decided that White Pond Advisory Committee essentially could represent all of the entities that have, you know, interests on the pond. So that really also wasn't necessary, but I've read a lot about them. In some places they've achieved a lot of success, particularly if the town doesn't feel like it has, you know, town government doesn't really feel like it has a stake in it. It's one way to move things along, and there's a lot of information about it.
What do you mean? So if the town doesn't want to participate, you're saying just form an advisory committee or a watershed committee?
It's a watershed association, and you have 3 camps, it sounds like, and probably a lot of private abutters.
Yeah.
But no town land on the pond.
Actually, I believe that there is a town, there's a landing, which I think is owned by the state. The pond is, you know, is a Massachusetts state pond, but
Okay.
but the town does own the beach, which is, well, it might be owned by the Boxford Athletic Association, but I think the town owns it. I want to say, I'm not sure about that. I guess I need to
Well,
find that.
It might be worth looking into. There's a
Yeah.
lot of information online about watershed associations.
Okay.
Karen, I want to mention that one of the first things we did this summer is we set up just a tent and invited everybody in a few different neighborhoods to come out and chat with us. I found that to be a real great head start to what then became our White Pond Vision 2021 document.
So how did that work? Did you just, you know, meet on the beach or something?
We brought cookies. I think it was the cookies.
It was the cookie. So you basically,
We went
you
to
know,
that.
sent the notice around to people saying, we're
Yeah,
having a problem. We'd like to meet about it. We'd like to talk to you about what we've found and what we plan to do.
Actually, it was more like, we'd like to hear from you. What do you think is going on with the pond?
Mhm.
And
Oh, I
so
see.
it was definitely we want to hear from you. It was definitely not, let us tell you.
Oh, I see.
And we contacted everybody we could, and we set up a tent, and people just came out.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
We heard from 50 or 60 people.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's great. Yeah. I mean, I think that even if the town, I mean, this is an expensive endeavor. Even if the town didn't want to give any money, I think once we got them going, I think that they probably would, because this is a jewel, just like White Pond is a jewel. This is an incredible resource and recreational resource. And I mean, it's a magical place. And I think that people around the pond would give some money, you know, out of their pockets to have this effort go on. But, you know, I think it's going to be just a total multi-pronged approach. So, you know,
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt. One of the things we're going to talk about, Karen, is we are actually discussing, setting up like a foundation ourselves, and we're going to talk about that further on. I think it's actually the next action item. I know Amy in Marston Mills, they actually set up what is it, a 401? What's
Oh,
the,
wow. 403B.
a nonprofit.
Mhm.
And they think they can raise money and get grants also for things like that if the town won't be able to. Although I said the town is probably going to earmark, they look like they may be earmarking for that. But they set up a committee, a volunteer committee, just like your group, to do just this because the care, and they found people from town, there was many people who wanted to help. So, we will discuss that.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm sorry, Amy's not here, but we'll go to the next agenda item, which is should WPAC explore the creation of a trust for White Pond?
Actually, Beth, can we go back to number 5 before we go there?
Sure.
So this is the question. What happens if the CPC does not approve funding or approves partial funding only?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Thanks, Josh. So, go ahead.
So we don't know if the Community Preservation Committee will approve us funding. We do know, or we do believe, we don't know, but we believe that if the APOD does not run in White Pond next summer, that the likelihood is extremely high that the pond will be closed all summer. So we're left with figuring out, our own direction. Before we go there, though, Kate, are you up on the conversation of the email that I sent to Stephen Crane this morning, or that we sent to Stephen Crane this morning about, is the town interested in supporting the CPC application?
Muted.
Kate, I
Can't
think
hear
you're
you.
on mute.
Sorry, you would think I'd be used to it by now. I was in receipt of the letter because you copied me on it. And I had a conversation with Stephen about a variety of things today, and he is in receipt of it. He has asked, and I don't remember whether this conversation happened with him today before or after he received your letter, but I know that Marcia Rasmussen was there yesterday. And so I believe she and Delia had a conversation with the manager earlier this morning, and he had asked to set up a meeting between Marcia, Delia Kay. He would like Alan Cathcart to be there based on his expertise in water, amongst other things. And he would like the new assistant health director, and that's because Susan will be unfortunately leaving the town for retirement in the next couple of weeks. And so
Wow.
we're trying to bring someone, it's wonderful for her and such a loss for us, of course. So we're going to be having that meeting together at 11 on Monday. I got the impression that he'd sort of like to hear from the stakeholders before signing something. And my understanding is he also had a conversation with Susan, and if I'm speaking out of turn, Susan, perhaps he's planning on having a conversation with you. So I think that there's wheels turning. I just think that he wanted to hear from everybody.
So TBD on that.
Yes.
Susan,
right, so-
go ahead.
Yeah, I haven't heard directly from Stephen. I saw him earlier tonight at another event, but no, I haven't heard from him about this yet.
Well,
All right.
if you all talk, I mean, you were at the meeting last night, the CPC, time is important. And Kate, thanks too for letting us know that update, because it'd be great if it's going to happen. And I think it really needs to happen based on the comments we had, and happen faster, sooner rather than later, because they'll be voting on the applications and the amounts per application within the next few weeks is what I've been told. So thank you so much.
So we'll wait till what we hear on Monday. And if that is positive from the town, then all that means is that we have another strong support in the CPC application. But as earlier noted on this call, the CPC has requests that are much greater than its available funding.
Yeah.
What we're asking for is a very small fraction of funding compared to other projects that are 300,000, a million, et cetera. But still, we don't know.
Late in the meeting, there was some discussion with Marcia in particular, because she stayed, a lot of people left, asking her to help prioritize, because the town was asking for the lion's share of the money, like in the amount of 2 million, and all other applicants, I'm lumping the White Pond Advisory Committee in that, is about a $500,000. So I think they're, if I remember it right, they did ask Marcia, kind of saying, you can't get it all, it's a lot. That was my take on it. They said it a few times.
Right.
Catherine, to
Thanks.
clarify, do you mean they asked Marcia to stack
Yes, in
rank,
particular.
or?
Well, Marcia's a big applicant. She has at least 4 applications in. So
To
that
stack rank her own applications? Is that what you mean?
I don't think it was that specific. I think they said, it's a lot of money. and Marcia, could you guide us to, I hate to paraphrase, but it was directed to Marcia, and Marcia said, yeah, she would.
Okay. So, go ahead, Kate.
I just, that is true that they asked Marcia for that. I was on a separate meeting, but it's been customary for the last 3 years that the CPC asks actually the town manager to rank his priority of the projects in total, not just the ones that are town departments. And and obviously that's after the small amounts of money that go to the 2 staff positions that are there. So that was sort of the impetus behind Marcia's conversation with the manager this morning, which I think then parlayed into also, this group's request.
So Kate, does that, because, I'm newer to the town and this is my first venture with the CPC in general, but does the select board, once the town manager kind of does this ranking, or Marcia or whoever, does the select board have a say as well? How does that go?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
In the last 2 years, the town manager has worked with town staff, and we developed the town manager's priority, but obviously that's not just whomever the town manager is, but the collective staff. And then we bring that to the select board. And in the past 2 years, the select board has been in agreement with the staff's prioritization. I would imagine that if they were not, there would be a discussion, and then it would be amended in whatever way.
Okay, thank you.
This is Susan here. The select board has for the last 2 years done an independent ranking of priorities for CPC projects.
Oh, wow. So then the ranks get compared, and do those rankings that you do and the town managers do get presented to the CPC before they make their vote and recommendation?
I'm assuming yes, but
Okay.
I don't know. Yes, they
Okay.
do.
I see Kate nodding. Okay, thank you.
They have, and we've matched the past 2 years, which
That's
doesn't
the
mean
match.
we'll match every year, but
Okay,
it's been fortunate.
great, thank you. Any other questions about that part of the process? So Josh, this is to you. Do you want to, should we hold this discussion about the creation of a trust until we figure out if we're getting this?
Well, not the creation of a trust or a 501c3, but I think we can hold the second part of number 5 there. What happens if we don't get funding or we get partial funding? The one thing I'd like to leave the committee with is, although hopefully, we'll find out before our next meeting in January, whether the CPC has approved us to move forward, and then it's got to get voted on again. But, if we're turned down, I'd like everybody to give some thought, if you would, about what's the next thing. Do we do a fundraise? Do we give up the ghost? So just to keep the process moving forward, and do some contingency planning in the what if in a bad scenario.
I do have one comment about if you create a trust, because it does create a little bit of a legal complexity similar to what CC at Play had. And for them, it worked to their benefit. They were not a town entity. As we've learned, you are a town entity. And at that, if you create a trust, it could create complexities around independency, around procurement, because you might still have to abide by the town's procurement rules. So it might have to be like a separate entity, not a town entity.
Yeah.
I'm not an attorney, but it does raise that, given that history. There may be some complexity. So it may need to be something different that's creating the trust, because then you're becoming a nonprofit. So you're kind of wearing two hats. You're a town entity that is truly a town committee under the town's rubrics and requirements under procurement laws. And then at the same time, you're a nonprofit. Now, CC at Play became a nonprofit in some kind of, I don't mean it in a bad way, but just to be succinct, and to convolute the process in a way so that they could actually do things independent while not being a town entity, while serving a town entity.
So I think that, I mean, you're absolutely, there's all sorts of issues associated with this, legal issues. So I think that, and all sorts. So I think what you're saying, Josh, is that we should keep in mind that this might be an option, you know, not for a White Pond Advisory Committee per se, but sort of as a community.
Well, so
Right.
I think we need to separate out the different points. Kate's got her hand up. Why don't we let her get her 2 cents, then I'll continue.
Yeah, thank you. I would just say that the best way to do it would be a friends of group instead of a trust. There's some different legal parameters with a trust in court, including having a board of directors and certain meetings versus a friends of group. And I guess I would equate it to the friends, both the Friends of CC Play and another group that built Beatty. And I think that would probably be a very good model to follow, because the Beatty Center was formulated in such a way that they did not have to necessarily abide by the 30B regulations. And then what they did was they gifted the building. And so the idea would be to work perhaps with town staff, exactly what you're going to be raising funds for, go out and kind of start that process, and then either gift the results or gift the, if it say it was for the APOD, to gift that and then have that be accepted by the select board. So there's ways to do that are a little bit easier than having a trust. And, you know, I would advocate certainly for that. I also wanted to just bring up, and we just went through the initial budget passes, but we're talking about putting a substantial amount of money in the Parks and Playgrounds budget, in the health budget, and in natural resources, to the tune of about $50,000 between those three entities. And a lot of it was to continue the work for the APOD, but also some expanded testing that I know that you all have asked for. So I just didn't want the thought to be that if the CPC wasn't a viable option, or it wasn't a viable option in total of what you asked for, we want to work with you to be able to continue on. So I don't think it would be, I want to say dead in the water, no pun intended.
Well, that's great. Thank you, Kate. That's new news.
Go
You
ahead,
know,
Karen.
Josh,
can we-
oh, sorry.
Sorry, everybody, could you just, raise your hand or use the hand raise so I can just call on you? Thank you. Karen, go ahead.
Hand raise?
Can I
There's a-
sort of ask a basic,
Raise a hand on Zoom, but go ahead. Go ahead, Karen.
Hand raise.
I'm sorry to ask such a basic question, but what does CPA mean and what does CPC stand for?
Community Preservation Application is the CPA, and the
So it's
CPC.
act. It's
Oh, act, sorry,
act.
thank you.
Yeah,
act.
that's a law.
And then
That's a law.
community, and then the CPC is the committee.
Okay, thank you.
And
there are
that's what Catherine will send you that information about, that general whole thing.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Okay, Jim.
I did, and I don't have a hand raise icon, just for you to know, so I'm sorry.
Oh, is it only on Teams? I'm in a Teams. Well, raise your hand physically. Jim, go ahead.
I don't have one either, or if it's there, I can't find it, which is
I
more
saw
like
your hand.
the
I
case.
see.
Josh, I was thinking this would require some discussion with Kate Blair, but there is a Friends of White Pond.
Yeah.
She's kept it going for years and years. And that may be something, we should sit down and talk with Kate about. Is there a way that you would see this or your organization fulfilling a different kind of role, which is, anything you might have asked the trust to do or whatever. That's so there's some quasi independence there, but it can work as a great partner.
Right. Well, may I, Beth, move then forward to number 6 and sort of walk through what a current idea might be around forming a independent nonprofit to support White Pond.
Yes, please.
All right. So what we learned from Jane Prentice over the last month is that she met a group in Cape Cod that has formed a nonprofit for the support of their pond. And they've got the support of about 700 people in the town who contribute financially. And what they do is independent testing. They have the ability to hire things like the APOD. They can get legal advice. They have a town that's not very supportive, or it sounds like a modest support that continues to allow pollution in the pond. But their nonprofit is the framework that they use to engage in substantive conversations and to make meaningful financial investments in the health of the pond. It's a tax-deductible organization, which Friends of White Pond is not at the moment.
Yeah.
And so this isn't, I'm not making a proposal. This is really a topic for discussion at this time, is whether we would like to have a nonprofit. In my conversations with pond residents, they say, sure, I'd like to donate. Is there a tax deduction? It comes up. If we had an entity that would accept a tax deduction, that could generate some interest and financial benefit towards advancing the cause of White Pond protection. Hi, Kate. Hi, Dave. I did ask Kate about this at one point. And Kate, my understanding is that you said you had looked at this at one time and decided it was a lot of work and didn't really want to get involved. Is that accurate?
That's what I found, and I admit that I just Googled it. I didn't do a whole lot of deeper work, but it looks like it requires not only work up front, but then it requires that you do the same thing over and over and over each year.
Mhm.
And for whatever reason, the people who first founded Friends of White Pond, which would have been the Cotlers back in 1987, decided not to make it that. And I suspect that it's because it was too much of a framework, that you had to work within a framework to be a nonprofit, to be a 501c3.
Yep.
It's already like herding cats to try to get anything to happen with Friends of White Pond as it is.
Yep.
As Jim said, I don't remember what year it was. It may have been when, I don't remember when it was, but everybody said, put all the White Pond eggs in the WAPAC basket. That's your lake association, is the WAPAC, because they're affiliated with the town. They're the ones who are going to do all the, who can work. And so Friends kind of took a back seat, which was great because it had dissolved anyway, because people died and it just kind of fizzled. So I guess what I'm saying is I don't have the time or energy right now to do all that legwork. If somebody else would like to do it, like it sounds like Catherine has a great, likes to do this kind of work. So maybe she would like to, but I don't have the time or energy to do that kind of thing. I'm okay with being, with helping, but I don't want to be the spear carrier. I don't want to be the head of the spear.
I think you kind of need an attorney, and maybe you could hire an attorney through these attorney services that are not that expensive to, give you the templates of how to do this all. But, you know, that I think you kind of need an attorney and an accountant to
Yeah.
submit
So-
the forms every year. I think you need a professional.
Yeah.
I
So
don't,
I actually know how to do all this. I've researched it before for another project. It is work. You know, it's building an institution. It's building an infrastructure, right? So if we were to engage in this, it would need to be seen as a long-term, multi-year effort. And you're building a small company. That's really what it is. Company doesn't make any money and it doesn't pay anybody who's involved with it, but it's a regular fundraising effort. It's a regular communication effort. It's going to, you know, be the social media committee that we've been creating here. So there's a lot of parts to it. Again, if the town is able to fund the APOD and really get engaged in testing, that is by far and away the preferred option in my mind. But if we're in a position where that can't happen for whatever the reason, then I think it's worth this committee having a pretty serious conversation about, is this something that we would do? Who would want to be on the board? Who would want to run it? I mean, I don't really fundamentally. I'm good at starting things, but to run it longer term, that's not what I'd want to do. So do we have enough interest? But we are talking about the survival of our pond here. And I don't think that anybody, including abutters all around the pond and beachgoers, are prepared to give that up.
I also looked into the crowdfunding that you mentioned, and that actually seems to be a little easier as far, yes, it's not tax deductible,
Yep.
but they're looked at as gifts. So therefore you probably don't need the accountant. You don't need to send tax forms in and all those kinds of things.
right.
And,
Yep.
and I'd also like to point out that the Trump administration made it much less lucrative to give away money. They took away
That's true.
the tax
That's
incentive.
true. That's
So, you know, you'd have to give a lot of money to see anything be taken off your taxes. So there's that as well.
So I think, thank you. I think what I would suggest that we probably should keep this as an action item because we need it for so many other things. Once our subcommittees continue their hard work, for instance, the social media, you know, just that, you know, sending these postcards out, you need money. If we have to look at things like sewers or, you know, other alternatives, we're talking about the youth group has, you know, found significant road drainage issues on these private roads, you know. So at some point, if the town cannot support the private roads and all the things that are contributing to the water quality issues, we probably would want something like this. So we can be contributing and have the town maybe contribute with us. So I really think it is something we should still kind of investigate further. And maybe we can also benchmark besides what you know, Josh. Kate mentioned that, you know, the people in the BD Center and the CC Play. I mean, maybe there's other, we could benchmark that, but I think the crowdfunding is pretty easy and you can get obviously money that way too. So what do you think? Action item?
Yeah, no, I think we keep it on. I mean, crowdfunding is definitely a reasonable thing here. Well, I mean, and if we can't get APOD funding, whether from the CPA or the town doesn't work out, if we want it, we have to do a crowdfunding. I mean, we're going to be starting a GoFundMe page. That's basically what it comes down to the tune of 36 grand.
Yeah. And there's also the one thing we haven't talked about, but I think that's why I want to table it to see what happens, you know, where we end up on this APOD situation. And like I said, looks like probably budget money will go for the water testing, you know, scheme that we worked on with Nancy Leland and we submitted to both Susan and Delia. But the other thing is you can get grants, not just like NSF. And we wrote a letter for everybody's edification. We wrote a letter of support to NSF for Higgins Engineering that we will approve tonight. And, you know, it's possible that there will be some more funding if White Pond fits the, you know, the bill. And the people in Marston Mills also said you can get grants from banks and things like that. So you don't have to be a nonprofit for grants either. So I think we've got maybe a couple of different alternatives.
Sure. Beth, could you sift that out a little bit? Because my understanding of the grant world is that being a nonprofit, it's really much better to be a nonprofit if you're going to write a grant application. Are you saying that you don't think we need to be a nonprofit in
Yeah,
order to ask for grants?
She was saying that they all have their own budgets, right, where they give away money, and it is desirable, but she said that she knows that they give grants to people and organizations that aren't nonprofits, but I haven't done any work on that at all. That was just what I was told.
Okay.
But nonprofits can also have employees or pay people for services. I mean, just because you're nonprofit doesn't mean that you don't use some of the money that you've raised to run the business.
Right,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
I belong to a few on a board, I'm on a board of directors of one, so yes, definitely. But you just have to be very careful. That's where all these yearly reporting and everything is. So you don't cross that line.
Yeah, I mean, things like LegalZoom can be a good entity because they're not that expensive. They're really barely $1,000 a year. They provide limited services, but they have a lot of templates. And I'm sure they have templates for setting up nonprofits.
Yeah, that's fairly easy to find. That's, I think, the least of our problems. The
Sure.
issue, I think, would be building a fundraising organization. Now, there are 2 local nonprofits also that we could potentially partner with. I did reach out to the Concord Land Preservation Trust, and it was it was a fine conversation, but I don't think it's the right partner for us. And then there's a woman who runs a nonprofit around the pond for a different purpose, who said that she was open to talking with her board to see about her nonprofit being leveraged for White Pond support. So there is
What are they, Josh? What is the role?
it's beyond me.
Okay.
Anyhow, so there is a scenario here where we don't need to form our own nonprofit, but that we could piggyback on someone else's.
Interesting. I don't know how that would work, but
Me neither. Well, I think basically what it comes down to is a bank account that says this is earmarked for White Pond.
oh, okay. All right. Okay. It sounds like we keep this on the board. I mean, we keep this on the agenda. We'll keep it as an action item and have further discussion at our next meeting. I think right now the problem is it's we're going to need some volunteers because you and I just can't do everything.
Nope.
Or we do that only.
Yeah, right, or we do that only, right? Susan?
Yeah, I just wanted to verify that what you're talking about is separate from the town committee.
That's correct.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Fully,
Susan.
fully separate, not to be confused with the White Pond Advisory Committee.
Yeah,
Okay.
we would be like the Friends or something.
Yeah.
Susan, I see that you might be able to give a tutorial to everybody how to raise your hand.
Oh. You go to reactions and there's a bunch of emojis, and then below that it says, oh,
Thank
mine
you.
says lower hand, but it says
Yep.
raise hand.
Got it. Thank you. I love it. Zoom 101. We were successful in sharing a screen, no, but we did wave our hands. Okay, so I think we can move on to the next topic.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you,
just wanted to say, we can also do thumbs up.
Yeah, and a big heart emoji. The next one is the social media updates and discussion. Kate's here. I don't see Ken or Lucas. And Kate Hodges is here too. One of the things we had talked about was how do we get the word out about the new website that is created, and is it ready? And how would we then link town departments also to be adding information? So it's just collaborative between, anybody who needs to know all things about White Pond. So apparently, and Kate, just jump in anytime, like 3 years ago, I think when you were working on the beach project, you somehow got a list together, and maybe you can just describe the process of how that worked and what it did. Thank you.
Sure. So we used the town's GIS system, and I had offered to give a tutorial. I mean, I'm happy to print the labels for you, but it's possible that you might want to access the list yourselves for various reasons. So it's actually pretty easy. And what we did when we were going through the master planning process for the beach parcel was we did as far as abutters to abutters. Now, it isn't a foolproof system because it has the physical address, And only if the person updates their mailing address on the census is it corrected in the GIS. So, but I would say that we had probably more than 75% get to folks, as long as they were listed in the GIS. So it actually comes both as an Excel sheet, or you can format it into a mail merge. So I'd be happy to show you that. And then we cross-referenced that with the number of families and households who had either been on the White Pond Associates Beach Pass holders list and the first year of the Recreation Division's Beach Pass holder list. Some of them were out of town, but we still did that because we were talking about, you know, an entity that these folks knew about it and were invested in. If you're not interested in that, it's simple to kind of take those out. And then we used the town's public information officer. Her name is Erin Stevens. And we asked that she put out a number of advertisements on our social media, and then a couple of things on the town's news and notices. That only goes through to people who sign up to receive those emails. But there's a few thousand on that. Actually, I think we're up to about 8,000 or so. You know, at least 20% of those folks are not from Concord. They're just interested in Concord news, but I think you would probably get a good email base there as well.
Is there, Kate, is there any way to get emails, or is it only physical mail?
For the abutters,
Yeah, like, is there a list like that?
I do not have that. Perhaps I can have a conversation with the clerk's office and see if there's anything in the census that does that. We haven't had a lot of success with that. The only thing I would worry about that, and perhaps it's different with the information you're putting out versus the legal need to notify abutters, is just sometimes it goes into spam mail, or people
Yeah.
don't recognize the address and they don't read it.
I was only asking because of the cost. So when, with the town, do we get the I would say we're not a nonprofit, but just the town have some kind of a cheaper way of we can, you know, tag along and use some cheaper mailing options if we send all these postcards out?
So the town has a media mail certificate that we get. I am not clear on how you could use that. I know that you can't use it if it's not a town, but your group is a town entity. So I can investigate that for you. I think we did that one other time with the Council on Aging when we were talking about early in the pandemic, and we were offering some type of at-home services, and we received approval, but I'm not quite sure whether that's just simply through the town manager or through the select board. But if you let me look into it, I can. Do you have any idea how many I mean, the abutters to abutters was several thousand. I don't know whether you're trying to go that wide or not.
Interesting.
Can you explain what you mean by abutters to abutters? So abutters of the town and then the next, or?
Yeah, I wonder if it might, if you can indulge me a second, I'll see if I can bring it up so you could see sort of what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, I was thinking it was abutters to the pond and then abutters to,
Right.
but you're talking much bigger group. Okay.
Right, so let me just, I believe I have the ability to share my screen here.
Oh, good. You can show me how that works too.
So this is the town's GIS system. And obviously this is White Pond. And so what we can do is we go over here and we click this little icon and we click the parcel, the White Pond. Actually, we did this one because it has to be an actual parcel. And then we do layers, and there's all of these different layers that you can do here. And I'm sure it's really small on your screen, so it's not probably that easy. But essentially what you can do is highlight the abutters. So these are direct abutters, right? Just like you had said. And then we do abutters to abutters.
Oh, it is. Okay.
And essentially it basically makes a concentric circle, but it just widens the circle. Again, that was because we had to legally notify folks. So we wanted to make sure that we were dotting the i's and crossing the t's.
And you thought that was how many thousand?
We had about 8,000 letters, or rather notifications go out. Now, some of that is because there are trusts that own, so if you look up one particular address, it may have 3 people on the deed.
Okay.
So
All
we
right.
would probably have to go through, my advice would be for us to put it in an Excel spreadsheet and then do a quick, you can hit Control F and find any duplicate addresses and then just send it to the local address versus the person who has a partial ownership in California.
Right. I
So we
get
could
that.
narrow it down, but I think realistically, you're probably looking at maybe 1,000.
Yep.
If
Well,
you're
I
going to
think-
do beach pass holders, other stakeholders and abutters to abutters.
Yeah, we'd probably want to do the current beach holders, right?
Yeah.
We probably don't have to go that far back, and then the abutters. And then I think your suggestion about putting it on the Facebook page the town has is good, because maybe, all right.
Yeah, and I asked Anna McHugh, our rec director today, how many folks last year signed up for beach passes, because even if it's just a day pass or a weekend, and she said there were 785 unique households.
Wow.
So those can certainly be via email. Those are folks who I believe would not or may not delete something from recreation because clearly they signed up for it.
That's interesting. I thought it was maxed at 450, so that's a lot more. Wow.
The day pass folks, we try to retain that information because if they are traveling from somewhere, and we were also trying to assist with giving people an alternate place to swim rather than at Sachem's. So we started to take that information in. We certainly, if the group wants to just limit it to Concord residents, I think you could probably knock off well over 100 on that.
Okay. I know, Katie, we talked, briefly that there is some money with the Friends for postcards, but if Kate, I don't know how much that is, but once we figure this out, I mean, we need the social media group here, obviously, the whole group, and then we figure out what that circle is, how many households we would want to. And then Kate, if you can also take an action item to see if we can use some of the funding or the nonprofits, mailing, we'd obviously lessen the cost. So.
Yep, I will look into that tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's no hurry, but thank you. That'd be great. All right. Just so everybody knows, you can, the Facebook page is up there. We did put the meeting and some other things, but I think the website itself, Lucas and Ken have to figure out what kind of, what status is it going to be. There's different options of $14.99 a month, $20 a month, whatever. So they're still working on it. And I'm sorry that they couldn't attend tonight, or they couldn't get in with the Mimecast. Any other comments or suggestions about this? No hands. Okay, the next one, the next group is the Septic Alternative Group, which is Jeff and Jim. I don't know if you have something to report. We put down here, we had the microfast system pros and cons and some other research you're doing.
Yeah, I
And
think we have some things to report.
Okay, I just want to add one more thing, Jim, sorry. Just so everybody knows, we had talked last time, there was a house that it's a lot over on Seymour.
Right.
And they had requested a variance to put in a microfast septic system because they wanted more than a 1-bedroom. That's all it was allowed for, and the town denied it. So just so everybody knows, so this was one of those alternative systems and it was denied. So please go ahead.
I think I'm not sure what the lot, it might have been the increase in occupancy due to the 2nd bedroom that they were concerned about. But anyway, so we've both been doing things independently and together.
Yeah, we were gonna meet.
I'll just
before
start.
this meeting Get coordinated. We didn't meet.
How much time do we have?
5 minutes?
Oh boy, okay.
Well, talk
I have to
fast.
move fast. Anyway,
No, there's no time limit, Jim. Just go.
crap. All right,
Let me just say one thing. I have a proposal, but I want to run it by Jim before we propose it to the group. I don't feel comfortable giving the proposal. So I think for myself, I think we can give a pretty good, when's the next meeting? January what?
It would typically be the 4th Wednesday in January.
Oh, that's a long time.
I think we probably will maybe need to do something earlier based on all the information going on with the town budget and the CPC. But that's generally our meetings are the 4th Wednesday, but we can certainly call another one if desired and needed.
I just think because of what we got from the youth group, we need to, formulate some sort of action plan. I mean, there's two things Jim and I are doing. One thing, we're looking at the long-term goals, like, do we want sewer? What's the best most cost effective? And the other thing is a short term. Okay, while we're working on the long term, what can we do that low hanging fruit we can go after that can might make the pond cleaner, right away, might help. And, looking at the youth group reports, we've seen that, there are some real gaps in information. There's certain domiciles that we don't have any information since the homes were built. We don't know if they've ever pumped. We don't know what they have, if they have a septic or if they have a cesspool or what. And so what I was going to propose, but I don't really feel comfortable. I mean, I wanted to talk to Jim about this before we proposed it, but some kind of voluntary, the people within, like, say, 200 feet of the water, maybe two rows, or depending on where you live, some kind of voluntary questionnaire they could fill out, and say what they have, when the last time they pumped. And then when we look at that, and we have to be able to, some kind of plan of action with the people that are not responding, or we don't have data on, trying to get the data without burdening them with $1,000 inspection.
yeah, I mean, I think, Jeff, I mean, that sounds like a pretty good idea. We still haven't got a handle, as he's saying, on what are the true existing conditions. For example, we think, just based on observation and swimming and so forth, that there may be as many as 3 properties that are discharging gray water directly into the pond. And Jeff gave the example of he's swimming along on the North Shore and suddenly swims through a stream of hot water and went back and forth, I guess, a couple of times. So we talked to Susan Rask about that, and what rights does the town have to go and do testing and so forth? And it was really ended up to be kind of a discussion with no conclusion. So we don't know that. It's I can tell you, there's not a lot of pumping going on around the pond, and there are places where expansions have occurred and so forth, and I don't recall anything being done with septic field construction and so forth. I mean, this is like adding an additional dwelling kind of a thing. So it's it's kind of vague what not vague, but it's we don't have a great handle on the existing conditions for a number of properties. On the other hand, for the others, we have very good conditions, distance from the pond, size of the tank, and so forth, which the kids and Jane worked up. So we've got a lot of work still to understand what's our baseline. We're trying very hard to work cooperatively with the town. So I met with Susan Rask, Alan Cathcart, and Jeff wasn't able to, but I met with Delia as well. And I said, your name keeps coming up, so we should probably talk. And we had a very good conversation. And they've all agreed to, essentially partner with us on it. And we said, we will come back to you when we have information. We will come back, Alan, to you as far as your engineering expertise and so forth, to talk about different things. And I think they recognize that we want to do it cooperatively, and that they don't have the time to go out and do all of this stuff. I mean, they, you know, the piles on their desks are pretty high. So I think they appreciate the spirit of it, and we won't have working drawings probably for anybody to work from. But Jeff, you've been talking with some of the experts in different places about some of the systems and so forth. Can you comment on that?
Okay. I'll just give you a little rundown. Okay, there's a pond on the Cape, and they're very similar to us, and they actually just got sued by the Conservation Fund for not. Basically, they're like White Pond for not attacking their pond problem hard enough, and having the same problem we have with the cyano. And talking with their Susan Rath person, said and that's where I got he said what they're making everybody do within 300 feet of the pond is to let them know, when the last time they pumped, what kind of system they have. And if they don't respond within a certain amount of time, then they are going to hit them with a septic inspection, which is, again, it's around $1,000. Now I said, well, how'd you get the 300-foot figure? And he said, because that's how far phosphates can travel from the pond. And I said, well, where'd you get that? And he said, well, that's just, I've heard that, or he didn't really know. And I've done a little research on that, and it really depends on your soil types. But I think, we could start with 200 feet or something like that, but just get an eye, I think looking at what the kids have done, we've got to take action from that. We can't just say, that's great. Okay, let's talk about something else. But I think we need to really try and see what's missing. There are some, like 9 homes we have or 7 homes I think we have no data on at all since they were built. And some of the ones that we don't have any data on are the ones that seem to be in rather hot spots. There's no record of them doing any kind of maintenance from their original 1940 house build. And they may have, but the town doesn't have any record of it. So we have to, Jim and I think we need to formulate a plan the next month of how we're going to attack this. Maybe meet with Jane Prentice too, and the kids, and because they're kind of the instigator of this whole thing, and see what they think about.
I'll just share some of the things I think we've learned so far is that the solution is the so-called permanent solution is probably going to be a hybrid of sorts. There will be some sites where still trying to get more information from the people. They are not licensed to work in Massachusetts, their systems, who have the phosphorus elimination, nitrogen reducing systems that are tanks that you add on to an existing system, from what I can tell. And I think there's also larger ones where you could connect, seems like multiple dwellings, and they're hard to communicate with because they're not a US headquartered company either. I did get a response from somebody who wanted to know how I found them and what we're up to, and I hope to hear back from them. So I said, we really would love to get some data from you on what successes people are having with your systems. What criteria do you need to set something up on a particular piece of land, that kind of thing. There's some other stuff out there that seems to be looming, but I think if this kind of a thing performs the way they are saying it does, that will get us a long, long way to getting rid of one of the main nutrients and much of the other. But we still have a long way to go on that. But the meetings for the town is kind of interesting. I think Susan was leaning a little bit to sewer as a possible solution, and wasn't really into the alternative septic systems kinds of things yet, just things she had heard, because a lot of this is still anecdotal. Whereas Alan seemed to be, it might be a more practical approach, both both in terms of getting funding and approvals and so forth, if you can figure it out on a more or less a site-by-site basis. And
Jim, can I interrupt for just a second, please? Sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know, Susan, it might be you. Could you put yourself on mute? We're getting a lot of background noise. Susan Andrews, thank you. And, that'd be great, just the background is a problem. Sorry, Jim, keep going.
as long as my talk wasn't background noise, then I'm okay.
No, it's like, it sounds like pots, sounds like somebody's doing dishes or something.
Yeah, yeah. So I think it's going to be very interesting, and I think it's like Karen seeking us out for information on how are you attacking this cyanobacteria problem. When we come up with a plan collectively with the town of how to address this problem with this, you know, houses on 2,500 square feet up to 12,000 square feet, how do you work all that in so close to the pond? We're gonna have a lot of people knocking on the door saying, how'd you guys do this? And I think the state will be watching closely. They consider, the fellow who spoke about the aquatic weeds seminar that he did down at Natural Resources, talked to him afterwards, and he said, you know, we think of Walden Pond as the real crown jewel. It's just so clear and in such great condition, and we see White Pond just behind it. So you get a feeling of what's going on in a lot of other bodies of water if we're, you know, kind of number 2 in the list. So it's also encouraging to know that, you know, if you only look at this in a vacuum, you can think we're in dire straits, where he says we have stop the bleeding, which is things like the APOD. And then once you get that stopped, it'll take about 5 years for the pond to recover, which is also, I think, in the long run, an encouraging thing to hear. I think that is it. Jeff, anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I'll just say quickly, I think Susan Zaras's position, and if I can just summarize it, if you do septic, you're going to get a home run. You're going to solve the problem. If you get all these alternative treatments, some of them may be effective and some of them not. Her experience from 10 years ago on the Cape was that, you know, none of them are that good. But I've talked to the people at the septic place on the Cape, and there is one from Japan that's supposed to be kind of a real good one. But I need more information about it. I'm gathering.
So we have, looks like there's some hands up. Susan Bates, do you want to go ahead, please?
Yes, thank you. I just had a question about, it's not directly related to this conversation, but about the Marston Mills Pond that was sued by the Nature Conservancy, I believe. And what I understood from past meetings was that the basis of it was that the town was not observing their own regulations. And what I've done is look back on the regulations for septic in Concord, and it's not exhaustive, but it seemed to me that the people in public works can't go knocking on doors and say, what's happening with your septic system? I mean, they're not allowed to do that unless the property's changing hands or they're doing a septic improvement. So I'm curious about how those two, Concord might be related to that.
Could I answer? I have the details on this. And so, Jeff, are you referring to Mashpee, first of all?
Me?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
Mashpee, correct.
All right, so Susan, we're all talking about the same thing then. So the story here is it's the Conservation Law Foundation that's suing the town of Mashpee. And the issue with Title V is that in the Massachusetts state Title V regulation, there is law that says that the town must ascertain that the Title V, I've looked up the regs, I've written them down, but I don't have them in front of me, but it's basically that don't do no harm. The Title V doesn't do harm. And it can't be environmental harm, and it can't be harm to property values. There's a couple other things in there. And what Concord Conservation Law Foundation is saying is that Mashpee, you failed to do that because you've allowed these Title V systems to damage the pond, which damages the pond and also destroys property value. And so that's where Concord could be in a similar category.
Yes, I mean, on the Title V form, there's a little box you check off that says there's no way that this system is gonna cause pollution into the pond or pollution to nearby surface water. And everybody checks it off. This is where what's happening is everybody just checks it off because that's what everybody does. And the fact is, no one should be checking it off ever. And that's what they're suing about, basically.
Right. So Susan, you're,
But
Susan
excuse me, if the
described it
town
as-
doesn't have the authority to go on people's property to inspect that, how do you enforce it?
no, the town doesn't have the authority to go on after the fact. You're right. It's when the system is being installed.
Right, right.
Susan said when she gets an application, she basically has to issue a permit if it complies with Title V.
Yeah, but see,
It's not an option.
That's
the
the
box
fail.
she's checking off that everybody checks off, and it's not against Susan because everybody does it. They just like, oh yeah, check. That box says this will not cause any pollution, and everybody just checks it off. And-
I think the core issue is that there's the assumption that it's Title V approved, and yeah, it's a septic tank, and the septic system developer says, yeah, it's Title V approved, but the town could be liable for not having done due diligence about the damages downstream from the normal way that a septic system is supposed to function.
And this is
Yeah.
nothing against the town. Everybody's been doing this in Massachusetts forever. So it's
Right.
not, you know.
But if Concord Law Foundation wins this case, there could be dozens of lawsuits in Massachusetts for the exact same thing.
Oh, yeah, this is going to be such a political nightmare. Not the least of which I mentioned that the company that has the Rewatex systems that we're looking at, their systems are not licensed for use in Massachusetts, and I'm guessing most of these alternative systems that are relatively new are not licensed for use in Massachusetts. So, on the other hand, I would think if these problems continue to become exacerbated, and it gets worse and worse and worse, the state will have to move quickly on evaluating and identifying new systems for approval.
Yep. May I ask
So
my
think there'll
actual, can I ask my actual question, then I can put my hand down and Susan Andrews has her hand up. Jeff and Jim, what kind of time frame do you guys think you need to come back and say, here's our recommendation about what we want to advance the town about how to get this nitrate and phosphorus out of the pond, or at least stop the flow of new nitrates and phosphorus?
Yeah.
You guys need 2 months, 6 months? What kind of timeline are we looking at?
Certainly by, I'm in a busy time of year for me, but what do you think? End of January? I mean, if I put that on there, my wife's gonna be I think we can, certainly by February, don't you think, Jim? February meeting?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, what's this saying you have, under promise and over deliver?
Yeah, there you
So
go.
maybe we say end of,
Yeah.
End of February.
Great.
But we're talking about, we've seen this, we've talked to these people, we have the specs, they've been reviewed by Alan and so forth.
Yeah.
And this seems to be something we should promote.
Great.
There's two, and then further to Josh's questions for this deliverable. And, we just heard Kate say that Susan, which I was unaware of, Rask is retiring. So
Right.
I don't know what that date is, but you're probably going to want to, if you have any more questions for her, because she clearly said at one of our meetings earlier, when you guys were talking about maybe 6 or 7 houses that may be problematic, she said, if you can tell the Board of Health which houses those are, you have a reasonable cause, they can do something, but you have to have, it can't be hearsay. It has to be something or see, So we keep talking about these 5 or 7 houses, and there was just some data the kids didn't get. I think if they're really potential gray water going in there, there's got to be a better way to actually get information, or maybe the survey Jeff was talking about is aimed at those unknowns, something like that. So I'm asking if you could put that in your plan as well.
Yep.
Yeah, we will. We will.
Thank
I
you.
think somebody who's knowingly discharging into the pond is gonna be, you know, if we ask, can we do dye tests and that, I mean, it's gonna be
They-
tremendous.
They
I
may
was-
not know.
I was
Jim,
trying to
Jim,
push Susan
let me
for-
just say one thing. One of the reasons when we had our meet and greet that Josh talked about earlier with the neighbors, we had a person who doesn't, and there's another person who's mentioned this to me too, who is said they're clearly aware of a builder who suggested to do this kind of, you know, to bypass from their washing machines. And they were afraid to speak up. So
Jesus.
there's people who think and say that they know this is happening. And Susan said, then let them report to me. And so and some people may not even know they're doing it, right? If they bought a house that was
Yes.
bypassing, how do you know?
They
You
don't
might
even
not know.
Yeah.
But guys,
when I-
again, so again, Susan said a number of things. If the gray water is just on top of the soil, up 200 feet from the soil, from the pond, it's not an issue. It's only if it's maybe directly into the pond, because otherwise it's the same as going through the septic system. So keep that in mind, one. Two, she was very clear. If you see something, take a photo. Nobody can go on the property. I mean,
Yeah.
there's very restricted. You can't just say, I swam through the water and there was something, because you can't
Right.
identify where that's water's coming from. So
Right.
it's going to be, I think, very difficult. I think the very people who may be doing this are not going to respond to, invitations to be clear. Maybe they will, but
Yeah, but
Susan was
but that's
very
it. If we
clear
don't-
about
if we don't-
what she could do and what we needed to do if we, to identify such homes.
Yeah, if they
No,
don't
I've taken,
respond, we go to
on our
step two.
side of the pond, frequently see a stream of soap bubbles going by. And I probably photographed them over the last 5 years, have taken in samples of water. And yes, there is soap in it and that kind of thing. But they can't do anything unless they know the exact spot it's coming from. And all I can say is, I know the two houses next to me are okay because they're new systems, and one's on the other side of the road, and then there's a few more houses. So is it coming from across the pond and then working down our side, or is it one of those
Yeah.
three
Well,
other
I
three
think-
properties?
I think Jim and Jeff, it's still worth, you talked about doing some kind of ask. It doesn't hurt to ask. If
Yeah.
you're
No.
going to do a survey, it's not accusing anybody, but if you think there's a problem and you think it's worth trying to do something like this, at least we tried, right?
Yeah,
I
Because
agree.
you
Yeah.
you don't want to put a bunch, because the next hurdle is going to be redesigning all our septics or sewer, which is going to be a ton of money. And if the biggest culprits are maybe just some, then it's like we're trying to solve a big problem with a number of areas, and any little dent we can make is going to be helpful.
Yes.
So I think
yeah,
it's still
I
worth your
completely agree.
effort. Yeah.
Agree. Yeah.
Susan,
Okay.
Susan Andrews, do you have a question or do you want to comment? Susan, are you there? You
I'm
have to
happy to,
unmute yourself.
I'm happy to comment. I raised my hand.
I just wanted to say I've been involved in these meetings for many years. And there was a point in time when the town said if the water quality did not improve, they were going to do infrared. And infrared is a non-invasive way of detecting where there is stuff leaking into the pond. Also, I apparently am the only occupant on the pond at this time using a tight tank, so I would comply with Title V. Every drop of water I put down the drain is pumped out. It's costing me thousands of dollars a year as a person working in Health and Human Services in a non-unionized job. So those were the only 2 points I wanted to share with you. Thank you.
Susan, can you elaborate a little bit about this infrared? I mean, I've only been in Concord for 4 years, so I don't know if you're talking about a long time ago. Was there some kind of a commitment, or what are you referring to? Please, thanks.
It was one of these meetings when they were in person before Zoom, and the residents were very upset, in person. All of the things, you're saying now would be being heard by other people as well. and in a group together in a room. And so the town said, well, if the water quality, this is when the water quality started to degrade to the point, you know, where people were shocked, you know, it had never happened before. And so they said, well, if it doesn't improve, we'll do infrared testing. That's basically what they said. And it did not improve, but the infrared testing never happened either.
So thank you. I don't know, like Cheryl, you've probably been, or maybe Jim, you were on the board a while ago. I mean, is any, like for Josh and me, we're new. This is not anything I would have known about. Is it ringing a bell?
It might be dye testing.
I remember a discussion about dye testing, but I don't think, last time I was on the board was like in the late 70s, okay? I mean, this committee.
Never mind.
I mean, I got a wonderful memory, but.
No. I think Susan must be talking more recent. Cheryl?
But it has come up in the past, and I do remember a discussion about dye testing once. I don't remember the infrared, Susan, but that's a non-invasive test. You don't even have to be on the property to do it.
Yeah.
So, but all it does is test to see if there's a difference in temperature coming from a place. I just quickly looked it up. You know, and that's what it's looking for. It did not come up during it since I've been on the board, that the town did not make any commitment to use any sort of testing.
Okay, thank
Well,
you.
that's interesting.
Catherine, do you have something to add to this discussion?
Yeah, I just looked it up too. It said thermal testing of sewer voids, but I'm not sure what a sewer void is. So, I mean, I think it does exist as some kind of, you know, testing technology. I guess I have, you know, a separate point, like if there are only a few homes and just think of like the quote unquote millions of dollars being asked for other projects, you know, down the line, long term, you know, if people were getting funding, because, you know, you can kind of assume that some people don't have the $30,000, $40,000 to invest in a change in their septic system when they don't need to. But if there was some kind of funding put aside, and people would be more likely to volunteer to have their systems upgraded. So maybe this is a little bit Pollyanna, but you know, people don't like, you know, upgrading their sewers when, from their perspective, it's all working fine. And I think that, you know, Susan Bates is correct. You know, I don't think that we could have systems on this pond that are 80 years old, maybe more. You know, they could be getting close to 100 years old. You know, given when Pine Knoll Shores was first developed, and they may not even be what do they call that? You know, holes in the ground. They might even be barrels in the ground. So they could be systems that are failing because they work as failed systems, and they're not filtrating. And I just sent out an email to Jim and Jeff, just from the state's level of alternate technology. This is making another point. Alternate technology has been around for 25 years. And, you know, the approval list is huge compared to what it was 25 years ago, because we looked into it when we built our house 25 years ago. You know, I don't know much about them, but some of the systems have been around for that long, like the RUC system. Some are sand filtration systems as well. I think they're add-on systems. I haven't looked into this in 25 years, but, you know, I would assume that some of them are far beyond provisional and pilot, and they're approved systems. And, you know, I personally think that, you know, if there's only a handful of systems and we could get some funding, you know, to replace them, people would be more likely to volunteer to participate.
That's a good
Thank you.
point. Yeah.
Susan, sorry, Jeff. Susan, did you have your hand up again, or you just forget to take it down?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not a Zoom person, so I am
It's okay.
technologically incompetent with these things. I will take
No,
it back.
it's okay, because Susan Bates
Yeah.
kindly told me how I call on people when I look at hands when we're moderating. So thank you. Just to make sure you didn't have a question. Jeff or Jim, did you have something to add?
I think
No,
what Katie said is a very good point. That's all. That's great.
Okay. So,
That's-
Jeff?
It being at 10 of 9, may I
Yeah.
propose that we move forward?
Yeah. So we have an action item, Cheryl, you've got that for the septic group. We've got a lot of action items. Just reminding you on that one. So the next thing to discuss is there's a, I didn't know it was a requirement. Last year I wrote the White Pond Advisory Committee annual report. And I'd sent an email to the committee asking all of you to be putting together what you think are the highlights of the year, and we can merge these, documents together, and we will be publishing this report. It goes on the town website. So let me just call on each of our committee members. Have you started on any summary of the year in review? Because we'll want to publish it in January.
I have not.
None. Okay, Jim.
Well, let's see, I officially became a member in September.
Okay, so we won't count on you.
But I have summary notes that I will give you about this project where Jeff and I are working on.
But yeah, perfect. It's high level, because if you look at the
Yeah.
one from last year in 2018, I guess Carmen forgot in 2019, but it's basically, it can be a 4 or 5 page document. We already have the vision. We can refer to those as well. We don't have to reiterate all that work. Cheryl, how about you?
No, but again, you should look at, I think it's a good idea to look at what the various committees send out too. I mean, 4 or 5 pages seems like a lot, but I think it's advisory. It'd be good for people to look and see what the various committees put out, because the whole document, it compiles all the committees. So, no, I do not have anything drafted yet, but I will certainly send my notes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, because we can go through the minutes, but it's just really high level. I mean, like for me, and Josh, please, butt in anytime, we've done a lot of work this year. We've met every other week. We met more than most committees met in person and in Zoom than every other committee that I can tell. We've really done a lot of writing, the vision being one, the CPC application, forming subcommittees. So there's a lot to be, we've moved the bar, I think. And we just need to capture that. In addition, these subcommittees we formed, even though new, there's been strides, right? Water testing is one. The social media, it'd be nice to have an update. Jane Prentice sent this morning the group update from the youth group, because they're not a White Pond, they're a subgroup, right? So we can use that as well. So it's just important to actually kind of write all that in there, because one of the dilemmas we face is when we were talking about the website in the future of the social media, there's 30 years of the Ponderings newsletter and things like that, but we want to have these things kind of summarize the big picture, because we can't always go backwards. We need to be moving forward now. Josh, anything to add?
No, I think that's great. And similar to what Cheryl said, I think we can be short on the annual report.
Yeah, I think the reference documents are important because we have them now.
Yeah.
So yeah, if everybody can kind of, put just bullet points together, highlights, and then send them, and then we can kind of go through them and put something bigger together. The youth group, for example, I would just write as an appendix, perhaps, or maybe take some of the highlights from them. Okay, so we need to do that. And then the last item on the agenda is other business discussions, Q&A, anything that the committee or the audience would like to add. Josh?
Yeah, I'd like to ask for help on the people management committee. So I'm sucking wind here. And the reason is I don't really know what I'm doing. My initial vision was to reach out to all the different town departments that might have anything to do with people management, just to hear what they have to say about people management at the pond. We all know it's a big issue. The residents are really unhappy. We heard this loud and clear and have been, it's been going on. It's documented for the last 6-10 years. So no new news. But again, looking forward, how can we move the ball forward? We had an initial volunteer group meeting, and I said, yeah, I'm going to reach out. I got sick for a little while, then it was Thanksgiving, so I've lost quite a bit of time. But now that we're after Thanksgiving, Kate is on my list, Delia, And we've sort of gone around the bend here with a bunch of folks. I'm wondering, is outreach first the right thing to do? Or do we write a straw man that says, here's sort of what we think. What do you think about this straw man? So I'd like to bring it to the group. Does anybody have any ideas? I mean, should we do a listening tour? Should we just draft something and punt it out? What do you think? Jim?
Well, Josh, I think the second approach is the best one. Because otherwise it'll be a discussion about, well, you know, we're not sure what's going to happen with this. And we are looking at the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail and we're concerned about the development of Sudbury. And on the other hand, going with, we think this is going to be a problem. These are the areas that we think need to be addressed. You know, particularly if it involves the cove and bathrooms and stuff like that. And so you give them something specific to look at and respond to, I think will be more productive.
Okay. Kate Hodges, do you have anything to say about this? What works best for you?
Sorry, I'm having some computer difficulty here.
Yeah, no worries.
Network was unstable. I think that there's probably no new information that we can provide, and I'm just speaking for myself. I think you know the rec operation. I think that we've had plenty of conversations. I guess if there's going to be a people management recommendation, it would be great if we could get some ideas on how to implement that.
Yeah.
Because I think part of the things that we've talked about, at least internally, is we can certainly ask people to do certain things. We can nudge people to do certain things, but some of the regulations don't have a lot of teeth, and people are smart and they know that if they enter the water at the cove and we don't see them and we can't prove it, there's not much ticketing authority that somebody has. So I guess I'm open to any solutions that you think are reasonable. And the other part of it, which I know that we have the rangers, I guess I would want the group, if you have any ideas, how to make that a job that's attractive to people, because we had quite a few number of excellent rangers who, you know, really could get paid equal, if not more, at some other less stressful places. And of course they don't have ticketing authority necessarily. And so, you know, just understanding that we want to manage people as much as you do. We just need to do it in a way that I guess has an impact. And I don't think we've quite figured that out yet.
Yeah.
So one of the things, so I was just thinking, I mean, so with the property in Concord that's associated or connected to the property in Sudbury, I know they've already made offers and people have agreed to offers on in Concord, so that property will probably be developed. So it'd be interesting if we could put some sort of conditions on the development that they provide rangers, guarantee rangers, to prevent people accessing the pond illegally. So that would be that. Then the cost would be on the builders. It would have to be an ongoing cost. I don't know how you would go about doing that. Because once they get their, build occupancy certificates, I don't know, maybe they put it in some sort of a ongoing trust or something, but that would be a way we could get a pile of money, arguably, to have rangers long-term.
I think it's a good point, though, if we raise these concerns and identify them, do we have any solutions to offer, Kate? Is, when late 70s, the place was, it was crazy, absolutely crazy. Cars, both sides of the streets, drinking, going to the bathroom in people's yards. It just went on and on. And so neighborhood, obviously, we raised our concern and went to the selectmen and they said, what do you think? And what we had done is we looked at some of the seashore towns and said, okay, how do you manage the parking conditions for your beaches? And they had neighborhood parking programs. They still had some public parking, but permit parking only.
Yeah.
So, okay, what will happen? Well, it'll, if it's clearly done, well, it had to go through town meeting. It had to go for review by the Attorney General. It took a couple of years to get the program in place, but the change was dramatic just by controlling parking.
Yeah, like, let me
It
interrupt for a
was just
second.
unbelievable.
And so those, I think what Josh is talking about though is there's this people management group and the parking permit signs are up. They may need some new ones. We've asked for them. But we need moving forward, that was something that was successfully done. What else can we do and what can we give the
Yeah.
town to help us with? Like Kate, one of the things, we've talked about in the past was with Delia, we need real good signs, because all you see are these, laminated things thrown all over the place. Like, yesterday I was walking the puppy along the cove and, the one sign that says no fly fishing, there's 5 fly fishermen fly fishing and the signs are by their feet. So clearly something like that. And I'm not hearing you say that we can't fund the rangers. Like to Cheryl's point, it would be a good idea to get some additional funding, but unlike last summer where we didn't have the rangers, it doesn't sound like it sounds like we're gonna have a budget, but making it an attractive
we have
job.
a budget. It's more than I think it's more than enough to have a very good program.
Okay.
We also have a budget for signage. I mean, the answer, I don't know what the answers have been in the past, but for the parks and playgrounds, which is through the facilities department, which I manage, it's not a robust budget, but the proper signage and installing it permanently is low hanging fruit in my opinion.
Great.
But I guess
All right.
We're facing this in lots of different areas around the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail. I'd like, what should the sign say? What should it look like? And it's not that I can't do it myself, but I think what would you as folks who are there all the time find compelling and not a source of sometimes if you make them too obstructive, they get vandalized, right? So it's just some suggestions in that manner would be great.
I think we have that in the vision. Thank you. I think we put something in the vision that we have really good signage, and we've also suggested that we do have some kind of a consequence, like a fine. I know that enters some area, but people may respond if they say, if you litter, $100 fine. I mean, that's just a state thing. So why not put it in writing, right? And why not put it in a sign that can't be vandalized, like the things on the wooden stakes, just for one example. Because, people are saying, I didn't see the sign when I've seen them with Bill out there. And then they're like, well, yeah, because it's up in the woods, right? So I think if we have a budget, that would be one really important thing to get going and actually have a consequence as well. Go ahead, Josh.
Beth, I'd like to let us move on. Let me get to work on this. I know what to do now. Thank you.
So are you asking for more volunteers in the committee
Nope.
of the 3 people?
Nope, just need to get unstuck. Just moving on from the outreach, and I'm just gonna put a straw man together.
So that's what the action item is, a straw man.
That's the action item. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good
Okay.
idea.
And then is that something we could present and give to somebody like Kate to say, hey, here's where we are?
Yes, but I don't want to set that up as an immediate. I'd like to circulate with us,
Sure.
and maybe that's something that we do in the first part of January.
Okay, no, I'm not saying that today. It's the holidays, it's bad, I know. Okay, no, thank you. Anybody else? I think Susan has her hand up, not on purpose.
No, it is on purpose. I was just
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. The whole issue here is the water line, when someone's foot steps from the beach into the water. And so what if there was a ranger in a boat right there where he could see the whole shoreline, or she? And if they had some sort of technology where they could actually snap a photo of someone stepping in the water or something in case there was dispute. I mean, there's no way around that.
Tough one.
Yeah,
I'd rather
Yeah.
say,
Let-
look at,
Thanks, Susan. Let me noodle on it. Certainly, we don't want to put anyone in any kind of perilous situation in the slightest, or set up any arguments. But let me work on this. This is not my first rodeo. with this thing.
Okay. All right, good. Thank you, Josh. Any other open business or discussions that anybody else wants to bring up? Just for the record, we saw that Chris sent an email back, and I think we'll get a new Zoom dial in, and it should hopefully for 2022 allow people to come into the meetings without problems. So thank you. Our next meeting would be scheduled the 4th week in January. If the committee thinks we should meet earlier, just send, let's send an email and we can make it happen. But the other thing, Kate, if you can help on this too, sorry, I've given you a lot of action items, sorry, is if you can tell me the contact, just you said it's you, so I can just send you the, okay, thank you so much. So
Yeah.
I'll give you a list by the end of the week about the meeting, so at least we can publish when we plan on having them.
Okay, and just for the record, we've been asked to schedule maybe 3 or 4 months out in the idea that perhaps in-person meetings will resume, or if the legislature doesn't enact the ability to have a hybrid philosophy moving forward. So I can't do the whole year, but I can do probably the first quarter. That's helpful.
Well, and just for the record, we were told there's only 2, when we started doing our hybrids, we were meeting at the Harvey Wheeler Center, but there's no tech there. There's no video. And I don't know if the town was working to correct that. So our only options were the planning department conference room. The library had it, but it was too early. So if there's anything the town's doing to open up other in-person meeting spaces, I think what we found is that it's better for us to be live if we can.
So my building has it, and you're welcome to use it. We have a new conference room that the facilities department just finished on the 2nd floor of 55 Church Street. And it has a television hybrid model that's mounted there that you could, it's big and it's on a cart. I would just need to set up a time to teach you all how to use it.
And then, so we could reserve that room now. Okay, so I'll take the action item to send you the first 4 meeting dates and try to get that room.
You got it.
Thank you. Okay, then I'm going to say it's 9:08. I move to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Motion.
Thank you, everybody, for your discussion and input. Appreciate it. And everybody who wrote letters, if you're still on, of support, we really appreciate it. Thank you, committee members, and happy holidays.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
See you next year.
Thank
Night.
you.